different parts of Kenya, a live studio audience is about to shoot unscripted questions. This is Agenda Kenya with Jason Nyantino.
On Agenda Kenya tonight, Kamotho Waiganjo, Commission for the Implementation of the Constitution, CIC, Kipchumba Murkomen, lawyer and political analyst, and Kennedy Masime, Chairman Steering Committee, Elections Observation Group, ELOG. A warm welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Agenda Kenya, your award-winning talk show. Tonight on this show, we focus on how prepared we are as a country for the March 4th, 2013 general election. In my audience tonight, I've got people coming in from Mombasa County, Kajiado County, and of course, Nairobi County. Welcome aboard. Our first question is from Desma Tunya, who is a student.
I'm Desma Tunya from Kenyatta University. The question goes, there is much hype about the biometric voter registration. Is it the silver bullet that will be used to stop rigging and the other election malpractices?
Thank you, Desma. Kamotho.
Yes, well, the BVR system is just part of the story of what makes a free and fair election. And I think sometimes we make too much of systems in what ensures an election is a credible election. What the BVR system is about a credible register. And that is just the beginning of a free and fair election. A free and fair election are about the other systems, about whether people double vote, not so much double vote, whether there is stuffing of ballots, whether there is abuse of the campaign season, where there is corruption in the process of voter bribery. Those things are not going to be stopped by BVR. What BVR will guarantee us is a credible register of electors. That is a good beginning. But if we assume that as long as we have a credible register of electors, we have resolved our issue on elections, I think we'll be deceiving ourselves. But it is a good beginning.
All right. Kipchumba, there's been much talk about this BVR, relating from Desma's question. It's almost the magic bullet in this coming election. Is that true? And what do you think are the demerits of this system? Because that conversation is not coming out well.
You remember the Curricular Commission questioned the register and the credibility of the register. And I think, if we want to get credible elections, the process is as good as the product. And I think I agree with the commissioner that it's not like the final solution, but it's a good beginning. And if we start well, we are likely to finish well. And the good thing, and I'm really impressed the way the commission, the IEBC, was seriously taking the question of registration of the voters, because, if we don't, it's an important aspect in terms of showing the green lights if we are moving to the right direction. And I could not take anything less than the BVR system, because then perceptionally, Kenyans will start beginning to say that rigging has begun. Remember, in 2007, the reason why we moved step by step, we started with the appointment of the commissioners. So anything that leads to the final results, I don't think there is only one magic bullet. There are many bullets. Okay. This is just one of those bullets. So because the enemy comes in more than 7 forms. So we have to have...
Okay. Thank you. Masime. There are countries which have used the BVR system. I'll mention Congo, there is Ghana, and many others.
Yes.
And one of the things that is coming out in terms of the demerits of this system is equipment malfunction, and that it also relies on internet. Could you just take us through what are the demerits of this BVR system so that people can understand what we are talking about?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues that this is just one aspect of making elections free and fair. And BVR is technology. Technology has to have a human interface. So we will need to train people on how to properly use it. If you don't train people properly, it will mean they will misuse the equipment that it will face. You need to be very diligent in using it. For instance, after fingerprinting, for example, one person, you need to wipe the thing and make sure that it is fresh for the next person. In this country, we have people who engage in physical labor, for instance, and their fingerprints are not that clear. You have to contend with that. Issues of even the weather and the temperature. Some of our places are very hot and humid. Yes. You have to contend with that. Even the very fact of physically moving the product around, Nyantino has been predicted. So there are challenges that it introduces that are not associated with the other system. So we have to factor in all these. It's just technology. The issue is, if you use it properly, it will help.
Mr. Masimo, what do you foresee? Because we're talking about weather, you're talking about internet. You know, those are variables we cannot control per se. Yes. What do you foresee with this system that is going to be used?
It's contingency planning and preparation. The Commission has to put in place measures that will help them mitigate all these factors to be able to successfully use the equipment.
Okay.
Yes.
From your experience in your public service, you know, you've been a scholar. Is there a country that has used BVR and elections have been free and fair? Because in Congo, in November 2011, they used BVR, but there were serious complaints about the result. You know, do you know of a country that has successfully used this system?
I think Ghana. Ghana is the best example in the continent in terms of using BVR system. And remember that their last elections was one of the credible elections in the continent. I think there's no need going for outside Africa. If we have a neighbor who is doing well, I think it's a better example for us to use. That is why you saw that all the discussion last time about BVR was about Ghana. The other problem with technology is what we witnessed in the referendum. You remember as the results were trickling in, as soon as there was uploading of the results, and suddenly the figures change. I remember, should it happen that, for example, in the first elections, and even if there is a runoff, you know, the elections will be so close. Now, if it becomes so close, and then, you know, results are coming in, and the whole country is watching, and the public, it's not just preparing and training the people who are going to use it, it's also preparing the public to appreciate that when the results come in, they could come in, I mean, ultimately, for example, in the last elections, that technology can lead us to certain things that look different from what we are used to. Okay. And if they happen, we should not lead to a situation where you can cause panic and anxiety.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, quickly, please.
The reason why elections are successful in places that use BVR is not because of BVR. The reason why elections were good in Ghana is because there's trust in the commission, there's trust in the institution, there is a commitment by citizens to have a free and fair election, there's a culture of respecting the rule of law. It is not BVR. Okay. It was the other software and the other infrastructure that support the election process.
Actually, what I know about the Ghana experience is there was also a problem actually about tallying for those of us who followed the process. And the chairman of the Electoral Commission stuck to his feet. And they actually ordered for a revote in one of the districts that was in contention. So I think credibility of the commission is critical. I'll take my next question from Dr. Koske John, who is a vet surgeon. John.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would wish to know what structures have been put in place to ensure that the mechanical breakdowns, the software breakdowns, as well as the internet hacking by the cyber pirates, yeah? What structures are there in place to ensure that this actually doesn't happen?
Oh, thank you. I don't know who is the expert on the panel, but Masime, you've gone around the world observing elections.
Yes. I would say that question would have been better directed to the IBC.
Yeah, they're watching the show.
Yes, but on the side of us like observers, what we will do is to undertake integrity test on the list to make sure that there are no integrity problems with it. For instance, you can do a computer test on the list and make sure that you don't have like old people who are like 130 years old being in the list. You can also take the list, the voters list, and also go out to the public and look for individuals who are supposed to be in the list and confirm that they're actually individuals existing by those names and particulars. Or alternatively, you can go to the public, get the individuals and come back to the list and confirm that they're there. So from the observer's point of view, you can do an audit of the register to confirm that really it's authentic.
Yeah, I think Koske's fears are real because I know that recently, I think sometime early in the year, last year, the government websites were hacked by a certain gentleman. And I also remember, the IBC is not here to respond to this, but I also remember that the test constituencies which were using BVR, which were about 15 or 16, there was a case, I think in Nyeri, where these kits, the BVR kits, were kind of tampered with. So I think these are genuine fears, and these are conversations the country needs to have. Can we hear from the audience? I'll start from my extreme left, the lady on the second row. Your name, comment, or question, please.
I'm Valerie Omamu from Kenyatta University. My focus mainly is on the internet availability in remote areas like Chemalingot in East Pokot, Turkana areas, the refugee camps. These places, even the normal communication, Safaricom and Airtel network is not available. How assured are Kenyans that during the elections, these places will be covered with the new systems? And how assured are we that it won't lead to violence again? Because mostly when the systems fail, there's a communication breakdown, information breakdown, and this is what led to the violence we experienced the last election year.
Thank you, Valerie. I can take one more from this side now. Yeah, the gentleman right in the second row. Your name, please.
My name is Mohammed. I'm from Mombasa County. My question is that are we sure that 2 weeks are enough to train the staff to use the BVR kits?
Thank you for that. I think Kipchumba, you'll take which is your county, by the way?
Elgeyo Marakwet County.
Are you running for a seat?
Yes.
So you're the right person. Which seat are you running for?
I am running for Senator of Elgeyo Marakwet.
Senator Elgeyo. So are you worried about Valerie's question? Because that should worry you.
You know, the question from Valerie is general use of technology. It's not just necessarily the BVR system, the registration, but also transmission of results. I think we've consistently been told that the transmission system will use such technology as mobile technology. So if they can use satellite dishes or whatever technology, they can be able to do that. But I'm worried. I am really worried because there is a possibility that with this kind of technology, those who have money and ability to manipulate the system may use it. And I'll go back to what Commissioner talked about earlier. My biggest concern is not so much of the technology itself. I'm more worried about the individuals who are going to run that technology. Okay. So we must trust the people who are going to run the system much more than the technology, because sometimes you can feed it. If there's a problem, you can pause and rectify the problem, but you have to trust the people who are running the system.
Thank you. Time for a break now, but we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Agenda Kenya with me, Jason Nyantino. Tonight, we are focusing on how prepared we are as a country for the March 4th general election. Do we have the necessary laws in place to guarantee a peaceful election? Before we took a break, Ken, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to respond to Valerie's question and say that you don't necessarily need to have internet at the place, because these are electronic data. You can store them in USBs and physically transport them to the headquarters where they are going to be merged and finalized. Our worries are justified, and we'll keep on repeating that it's due diligence. We went to Senegal where they also used the same, and the problems can occur. Even at the point of merging, you can find every first person, the name of the first person is matched with the data for the third person, and that is cascaded throughout the system, and it can cause problem. Okay. So in addition to professional institutions like us, I think even the ordinary Kenyans are supposed to be part of this process. And I think that's why you're supposed to go and check. After registering, you're supposed to go and check the register, so that if there are these, faults introduced in the system, they are addressed in advance. And maybe respond to the question about training.
Mohammed's question.
Yeah, is 2 weeks enough? I would say it depends on the kind of people you bring on board. We have a lot of computer colleges and universities. If you go to students who already have the know-how, then I think 2 weeks is enough. If you begin from zero, there will be problems.
So the assumption here is that IEBC has hired the right people.
Yes.
Isn't it? Because if they hire...
Yes, otherwise there will be a problem.
People whose proficiency in technology is low, then 2 weeks is certainly not enough.
Yep.
And that is actually the problem with an overwhelming insistence or fascination with technology. The truth of the matter is that we need to be asking the question of the credibility of the institutions. And I think there's a lot of work for IEBC to do to build public confidence so that even when things go wrong, because technology by its nature, something will go wrong. So that when it goes wrong, we know that it is not because there's something funny that is going on behind the scenes, but that is just normal breakdown. The US is a very technologically advanced country. You have seen what has happened in the last weeks until there's talk about the possibility of postponing an election. In a country technologically advanced, the reality is technology by its nature is one of the things that make things efficient, but it also comes with the problems of breakdowns, and those things will happen. As long as there's credibility in the institution, as long as there's openness, transparency, when things go wrong, people will accept it.
As CIC, are you satisfied with what IEBC is doing?
I think generally, yes. I think we would say that so far we have no reason. And remember, it's also about Kenyans, whether Kenyans have a problem to trust the institution. I think the only thing we have discussed and asked IEBC is to keep Kenyans updated almost on a daily basis as to where we are at, what is happening, what are the challenges, what are the issues that are being raised by panelists here. You know, what is it that IEBC needs to do to assuage people's fears? Because Kenyans have come from a position of not trusting institutions.
Sure.
So you must give information.
Thank you. I'll take my next question from Dixon Musungu. Dixon is a teacher.
My name is Dixon Musungu. I am a teacher. Now, I want to say kudos to the Constitution Implementation Committee. You are doing some good work. But now I think that you are toothless. I know that our honorable members of parliament in the old constitution, they were given all the chances to make the laws. But the new constitution gave the wenye nchi some chance to make laws as well. But what the members of parliament sometimes do, they even vote for the bills on their affiliations. Who do they know, or what are they going to do? And sometimes they say that they are going to paralyze some of the activity in the parliament if what they want is not met. What can the Kenyans do? What can we do so that you are given some good opportunity to help in the implementation of this new baby?
Thank you. Are you toothless?
I don't think we are toothless. Of course, the nature of representative democracy is that we have allowed parliament to make law. And that is something we must recognize. And in a sense where our opinions and the opinions of parliament are different, parliament has the final word, except if parliament conflicts with the constitution. If parliament conflicts with the constitution, we, both as a commission, and we challenge Kenyans also, must take actions to ensure that those things are set aside. And remember, we have an institution called the judiciary. The reason why the judiciary is there so that if parliament exceeds its boundaries, if it abuses power, for example, I believe if parliament says that they will not pass legislation because they can't get the allowances, that is abuse of power, for which actually people can be taken to court for a criminal offense because you're misusing a public office for private benefit. So in a sense, what we have done is in circumstances where parliament has insulted the constitution, we have gone to court and got to set those sorts of statutes aside for breach of the constitution.
Mr. Kamodo, the other day when CSU was launching, I think your annual report,
yes,
the very first one, isn't
yes,
it? The chairman, Mr. Charles Nyachayes, actually appeared to blamed the executive,
yes,
for the frustrations you people have gone through.
Yeah.
Could you share with us some of those frustrations?
Yeah, there have been frustrations. Of course, the most obvious one is the failure to respect the rule of law. When the executive says that there's a court order but we will not obey it, what are you telling the rest of Kenyans? So in a sense, those are some of the things that are very frustrating. When the executive takes laws to parliament without passing the due process, that is an insult to the constitution. When the executive tries to create multiplicity of institutions, because the constitution has said you're only going to have 14 and not more than 22 ministries, but you find every ministry is now creating about 15 statutory bodies to outlive the next dispensation. That is an abuse of the constitution. So those are the things that we are saying, that the executive itself is bound by the constitution. Parliament, the commission is bound by the constitution. And it is up to Kenyans not to ask what is CIC doing. But Kenyans must recognize CIC is only there for another 3 years. So there are some things we will refuse to do so that Kenyans can do them. So that when we move on, Kenyans take responsibility.
I hope you're not going to refuse to fulfill your mandate.
Not in terms of fulfilling our mandate.
Kipchumba, are you satisfied with what CIC has done?
Well, fairly well, yes. If you look at the circumstances under which they work, in fact, one member of parliament was mocking them that you are not the third principal. So I think to a great extent, CIC has done its best in terms of policing the implementation process and raising the issues. But we need, as a nation, to pick up from where they've left and do our part. And I want to continue, saying something about the question that parliamentarians, let me tell you, the biggest problem with the implementation of the Constitution is that those who have been left with the responsibility to midwife the process are actually not interested in the baby, or if they are interested in an unhealthy baby. And those are parliamentarians and persons who are working within the executive. The reason here is that personal interest. And let me tell you, it's not just a question of member of parliament. Even that civil servant in the office, if they are told that you are likely to go and get your job in county government, they would like to still want to remain in Nairobi, and that's why you see this creation of commissions and so forth. But the most interesting one is parliament. If you look at the Elections Act and the Political Parties Act, there were particular timelines we needed to, to have for credible and useful elections. Let me give one example. Look at the nomination of candidates for political parties. The parliament, initially it was 6 months. Within 6 months, you would have done a nomination, you would have closed the door for people hopping from one party and so forth. Now, they've told us that you can hop from one party to another after 4th of January. Now, between 4th of January and 17th of January is where you will do nominations. Between that from 4th is when IEBC, Registrar of Political Parties will close the party list, so that if you're going to do a nomination, you will use that list. Now, how are you going to be able to have a good, credible party list to be used within 15 days? Will even the Registrar of Political Parties have the capacity to clear the list, to give the parties a good list? So you will realize that our biggest impediment or institution, apart from the executive, as the AIC has said, is also parliament, because of conflict of interest.
All right, let's get to hear from Kenyans now. I'll start from my right this time round. The gentleman in a tie, second row. Name, comment, or question?
My name is Ivan Makori from the University of Nairobi. My major issue is with the judiciary. Maybe, for example, if we don't get the president in the first round, then somebody who lost goes to the court. Maybe it's in number 3. Then the case will go on and on. Then when are we going to go for the second round?
Okay, thank you, Evans. Still on my right, the gentleman at the back. Yes.
Okay, I'm Peter Maina. I'm a businessman. My main concern is about the BVR. They are using the fingerprinting. Aren't they going to discriminate the physically handicapped, those Kenyans without hands?
Thank you. Very nice question. Yes, the lady on the second row here.
Okay. My concern is on the implementation of the Constitution.
Your name, please. Your name, please.
My name is Peris Kahure from Kenyatta University. I have a concern with the implementation of the Constitution. Okay, IEBC is supposed to be completely independent. Their decisions are not supposed to be interfered with the government in terms of when the election should be held and all that. Okay, this time round you didn't follow the Constitution that the election should be held in August. So does it mean that we'll have a next general election in 2018 March, or are you going to follow the Constitution?
Okay, thank you. We will take that. I'll distribute it fairly and equitably on the panel. Very quickly, there was a question on the judiciary. I want Kipchumba, you take that, then I can spread the debate. First round, if someone goes to court.
No, the timelines are within 7 days? Yes.
So the timelines are clear?
If I'm not wrong, it's within 7 days, and the petition does not go to any other court for presidential elections. It goes straight to the Supreme Court. So, and it will be done within, is it 7 days, if I'm not wrong?
So there's a safeguard.
If you can confirm for me.
There's no problem. Because, and I think the question that Makori was asking is on the runoff, because what is provided for is if there's a petition on the presidential election, which a runoff is not. The Constitution is silent on what happens. There is currently a proposal, I think, one before the Supreme Court. The AG has sought an advisory opinion on how that issue should be resolved. Our own proposal as a commission was that that issue should be treated like a presidential petition, handled, even though the constitution is silent, handled within the timelines that are provided for the petition and by the Supreme Court. So that is our proposal, but that requires an amendment in the law, in the Elections Act. And that, I think, is what needs to happen and happen quickly so that we don't have a crisis on that question.
Okay. Ken?
There's a problem. You know, they envisage the problem at the presidential level, but what of who is number 2? If there's a conflict between number 2 and number 3, I think there's a gap in the law that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, thank you for that. I want him to...
Just quickly.
Very quickly.
Even if you are number 6 and you have a conflict with number 1, you don't agree that number 1 is number 1, it's still a petition. So I don't see, so even if it's a runoff, it's still a dispute.
Okay. Massimo, there was a question about physically handicapped, a very insightful question.
Yes.
Where does that leave out the physical handicap in terms of BVR? Then you can also respond in terms of IEBC and the election date very quickly.
Okay. I think there are a number of features that are considered. The fingerprints are one. Facial features are one. They even talk of iris, the iris, your name, and your ID number or passport number. So there are a raft of features that will be in consideration. So will you be handicapped in terms of you don't have the fingers? There's still a fallback, other ways of clarifying that you are there. So in terms of the election date,
she wanted to know because the data has been changing.
Yes.
And the constitution still, on the body of the constitution still is August, isn't it?
Yes.
On the body of the constitution. But you see the court ruling came, so we are going to vote in March.
Yeah, but my take is that, there was guidance from the court, and we are in a transition, moment. So the things are not that definite. The only right I would add is that, now we have gotten the data as March. What about the next election? I'm not sure, and maybe the lawyers here can help us, whether the Parliament and the Senate and the county assemblies then will allow their term to be cut short, whether they will be the ones to sacrifice their period.
How has CIC envisaged this problem?
I think the only question that was not clear on the date of the election was on this first election, because there were transitional provisions that seemed to indicate that the date may be different from August. In respect of all other elections, it's not whether Senate likes it or who likes it. The elections must be held in August. In fact, you cannot take that dispute before to court because there will be no transitional provisions. So that election in the next year must be held on the 5th year in August, I think. Was it the second Tuesday? Yeah, that is when it must be held.
And I'm sure that's what is confusing Paris. The law does not say after 5 years. It says within 5 years. Mm-hmm. So if you count which 2nd of August is within 5 years, you will find it's August of 2017. So it's not a choice. If you are going to run for elections at this point in next year elections, you don't have to choose. Your term will be less than 5 years.
Thank you.
There is another question she's asked about.
I need to take a break. I'll come back. Time for a break now. And if you're watching us, you need to be part of this discussion by answering this question. Are you satisfied with the pace at which the Constitution is being implemented? You can respond through the contacts on your screen. Give us your name and where you're watching us from. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Agenda Kenya with me, Jason Nyantino. Tonight, we want to know if we are really prepared for the March 4th general election. Kipchumba, before we took a break, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to add something. Perry's asked a very good question about separation of powers, the function of IEBC vis-a-vis the executive. I think there is, even in the theory of separation of powers, there is nothing like complete separation of powers. It's functional separation of powers. To the extent that you're able to assist yourself to achieve your mandate, there is a positive assistance to achieve your mandate, there's no problem. In fact, how government came in and said they're going to assist to expedite the process of getting a BVR, it's acceptable. We must look at the end product than basically looking at whether or not someone came to assist.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take my next question from Elkana Juma, who is a researcher. Elkana.
Okay, my name is Elkana. In the recent past, we had been experiencing a very rare thing that has happened in our country. Chiefs demonstrating, demanding their rights concerning their jobs. Now, I want to know, what is the stand of CIC concerning the provincial administration?
Okay, provincial administration, Mr. Weganja.
Well, I think one should ask what is the stand of the Constitution on provincial administration. I think the Constitution recognizes that the provincial administration is going to be in some form in the next dispensation. But it is clear that it needs to be restructured. And it needs to be restructured to recognize that we have a devolved government system. So it cannot exist in the same way it has existed. So whether chiefs will remain is a question of what are the functions that the national government is allowed by the Constitution to play in the counties and who should play that role. Now, our concern as a commission has been that government has been fairly silent on how that new structure will look like. And we have been asking government for the last, I think, 1 year, please give us the framework of how national government will look like in the next dispensation. And that would answer the question of the chiefs, the DOs, the DCs, and a lot of other people. And I think that issue is urgent because you don't want a situation where you have a new government in office and the question of those respective administration is not resolved. So we're asking for a quick, either a law or an administrative policy that is clear on what that will look like.
Do you have a personal position you can share with us about this?
I think it's difficult. It really is about functions. You know, if the national government has a function in the county, and that function can be played by those people called chiefs, I think that is all right. But they cannot play the role they've been playing. For example, a lot of those roles have actually been given to the county government. A lot of issues of security have been given to the security sector. They are not left with the national government. So in a sense, there are certain functions that chiefs have been playing that they can no longer play.
Why was CIC against the appointment of county commissioners, for instance?
Because we felt that what the Constitution asks for is a restructuring of the provincial administration. So what we were saying, what does that restructuring look like? How do the county commissioners fit in that restructuring? What is the basis on which they have been appointed? Have they followed constitutional principles about public participation, competitive recruitment? Have we asked what role are they going to play in relation to devolved government? So those are the issues we are raising about the constitutional application of restructuring the provincial administration.
Masimi, what do you think about this provincial administration debate?
I think for me it's a practical matter because they are filling a space that is useful for public administration. You know, the chief, the three functions of the arms of government are fused in the chief. They even perform judicial functions.
The chiefs.
The chiefs, yeah.
So as a person, would you want the chief near you, Steve?
Yes. They play a very important role, and especially with the new dispensation and the reforms that have happened in terms of performance contracting, they are the best people to deal with now. Okay. And I think they're useful.
All right, let's get to the audience now. The gentleman with 2 hands up.
Thank you. My name is Abdi Korio. I'm environmentalist and an aspirant Ijara constituency in Garissa County. And my question goes to Wakili Kimurgo. Is it enough the time allocated for casting the votes, the one day time, is it enough to conclude the voting, considering that no voter education was carried out? Most of people from Ijara and Elgeyo Marakwet, among other hardship areas, are illiterate and are voter-assisted. Recruitment of clerks is not done. In fact, my area, 40 out of 80 were recruited, 40 are remaining for whatever reasons. So, Wakili, can you give whether that duration is enough? And 7 positions are voted.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. There's a forest of hands on my left. I'll just take one. The most enthusiastic lady in green.
My name is Jane Harvey. I'm from Nairobi. My concern is just about the preparedness of our people towards the elections. I was up country, that is in Western. To be specific, I was at Chavakali, and I asked my mother, who is about 80 years old. I asked her, what will you do? Kura ziko karibu. Then what she told me was, walisema tutachukuliwa vidole. So tutapigia kila mahali. Unapigia kwenye huko. So the CIC, could you please do something about it? Because our people are not in the know-how. We still don't know how we are going to do this.
Okay, thank you. On my right now, the lady in second row.
My name is Frida. I'm from Kenyatta University. My concern was on the county government. Like personally, where I come from Tharaka Nithi County. Okay, there is rumors have it that the location of the county will be changed. And then we are not sure about that. That is, if the senator comes from, there are two, currently it is located in Chuka town, and rumors are like, if the senator or the governor comes from Tharaka, they're going to change the county government. Okay, and we have concern, like, now what's the way forward? Do you have measures that have taken, that have already said to cater for these?
Okay, thank you. One last one, gentleman in red.
No. My name is Mohammed from Mombasa County. Now there is this problem of, they call it historical injustices. Yeah? Mostly when it comes to land, from the coast, central province, and I believe Rift Valley also. So because of the historical injustices that have been done, that is why we find that groups like the MRC, like the Mungiki, like the Sabaot Land Defense Forces, they arise from the historical injustices. So what are the measures that are going to be taken to make sure that these historical injustices are dealt with, and such groups, they don't arise again?
Thank you for that. We'll go systematically. I start with you, Kipchumba. There are, I think, 2 questions for you. You'll respond to the time of casting from the gentleman from Northeastern, Ijara. Then you will respond to, there was a question about from Tharaka Nithi about, because I know you participated in a task force that was looking into these areas.
I was tempted with the chief's issue, but let's leave it now. The issue of the polling booths, or during the polling day.
Yes.
I think the decision will have to be made by IEBC to increase the polling booths. Otherwise, we will be, we may take forever to vote for 6 people. And I think they try to do a test, a mock voting around the country. Now, they've determined how many people will vote in how many hours and so forth. That will explain how many polling clerks will need. The very sure thing we know now is that it will cost more to do the next elections than the past.
So the idea here is to increase the number of booths.
Yes, booths, so that we can be able to.
Because I know during the mock election, especially in Kajiado, there were complaints. Even when there were those number of booths, results took about 7 hours. 7 hours to come out.
And I think it was important that it happened at that stage so that they can use it to correct. The only challenge we have is that IEBC is going through so many problems at a very short time. Registration of the voters, moving to the question of preparedness for the polling and so forth. But we must trust also our own people. And I think the only thing remaining for IEBC, I don't think we don't trust IEBC, but they need to do more. They need to invest a little bit more on the PR so that communication can come out continuously.
I want Kipchumba to finish, then I spread the debate. There was a question on
county headquarters.
Frida.
I think county headquarters is not written anywhere in the Constitution. It's upon the various counties to sit down and agree on the best place. And it's not something that can be done. It is administrative. So today you can decide that the county headquarters is X point. And if county assembly and the county executive sit down and they think that it is time to move to another place, my proposal has been that you can even do something akin to what South Africans have done. You can decide that we will put our county assembly one place and county executive the other. And then you push yourself even harder to ensure that there's communication from one end to another, and they will be fair.
Local leaders.
It's a local leader's decision to make.
Okay. Ken, you wanted to respond, and as you do that, I also wanted to tie in the historical injustices question from Mohammed.
Okay, just on the time taken for voting, we monitored the mock elections, and it took a lot of time, between 10 to 12 minutes, per individual. Well, the commission can increase the number of polling stations, but they have budget issues. And I think we envisage a situation, and they anticipate it, where voting might roll over to the next day. And I think the best thing that the commission should do now is to engage people in terms of, okay, if it rolls over, what protocols do you have in place to secure the vote? Because it is the trust issues that caused us problem in the last election. So they should be very proactive on that and tell us, okay, it can be allowed to, the next day will be elections if it's not over. Okay. But how do we secure the ballots that people are sure that what we put in is what we find in the morning? Yeah, I think the historical injustice issues is a tough one. There's a commission going on, and we all know the problems with it. But I think you can tie it with the idea of civic education. Yes, we had a very centralized government that was riding roughshod over regions. Now I think we live in our county governments. Why can't we engage them to address some of these issues? I think civic education and telling people that there's an option. You don't have to take the radical option of seceding. You can wait for your county government and engage it to address some of these issues. Now we have a new constitution and new structures that can help address these problems.
Okay.
That's my take.
Then Kamodo, there was a question from Jane about CIC. Then you can respond to any other.
Okay, I think Jane's question is about preparedness. And yes, I think we are all aware that the most Kenyans, there's a serious gap in terms of information and awareness on their responsibilities at different levels. By the way, I suspect that a lot of Kenyans don't even know that for you to be nominated for a party, to get into the party list, especially for women because of the gender gap, you must be a member of a party by the 4th of January. There are a lot of things that people don't know. Voters don't know about their rights in terms of voting. Voters don't know about their responsibilities in the new dispensation with regard to budget planning and all those things. And there is work going on at 2 levels. The Ministry of Justice is running a civic education program. It doesn't have sufficient funding, but there's some work going on. We are challenging media, civil society, religious bodies to actually do a massive campaign in civic education. IBC itself is doing voter education. It obviously is not enough, and a lot of work will need to be done. But I think Kenyans must also continue to, especially for those who have awareness, we must take responsibility. I'll give you an example. The bulk of elections in this country are actually won or lost at nominations, which has no BVR. Most of us don't bother participating. But I suspect in the TNA, ODM, URP zones, once nominations happens, the elections have happened. The bulk of us don't bother to participate. Okay. That is where elections are lost. And we must involve. Let me say something final on historical injustices. Let us recognize that the Constitution actually addresses those issues. The Land Act that was passed about a month ago sets up a very powerful commission called the National Land Commission. One of its responsibilities is that within the first 2 years, I think the first 2 years, it must set up a mechanism of resolving all those historical injustices. It must ensure that there is both legislation and a structure, whether it's by way of a tribunal, that seeks to resolve those issues fully. And I think that is so important, so that as Kenyans, we now feel all part of a just country. So something is going on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that is where the curtains fall. That is where the curtains fall for Agenda Kenya this week. I thank my panel and my studio audience for that insightful debate, and to all of you at home for being part of this discussion. You can still join this conversation by answering this question. Are you satisfied with the pace at which the Constitution is being implemented? Are you satisfied with the pace at which the Constitution is being implemented? You know the drill. Text your answer to the number on your screen. Give us your name and where you're watching us from. You can also extend this discussion to our pages, Facebook and Twitter pages. And let's get to know what you think about this. And until next week, goodbye.